Welcome back, friends, and happy Wednesday. It is that time again for Mental Health Sounds Like This, Real Talk with Emma G and Ra. If you are new to this platform, Arohamai, welcome. I am so pumped because this is literally the space where Ra and I go deep into conversation with humans from around the world about their zones of genius, yes, but also how they navigate mental health and self-love and sanity as they navigate their careers, their lives, their families, their whatever they're doing, so that we can benefit. And that's pretty cool, I think. But that's enough for me. How's it going, Ra? Talk to me. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, kia ora, talofa, hello, hola, all the greetings today. I'm great. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We just had a little chat prior off air, and I'm just really excited to start chatting to Greg.
Yes. Before we bring Greg on, though, I wanted to quickly put a little bug in people's ears because, Ra, you are currently in Canada right now, but soon you're going to be right here beside me in Washington, D.C. Do we want to give anything away about that?
I think that's good. That's
okay.
enough.
That was enough of a bug.
That
okay,
was
cool.
enough. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
But
very soon,
very soon,
which I'm excited to see you in real life.
Yes, and I'm excited for today's guest. We mentioned this before we went live. Every time I have a conversation with this man, he unpeels another layer of the mystery that is Greg Roland. I met him because, he's the chaplain at my church choir. He is a wealth of knowledge, but he also is a musician, a singer-songwriter. He has music. He just released a new song called the Easter Song, which is just stunning. He does all kinds of fantastic things. So please, without further ado, give it up for Greg Roland. What's up?
Hey everybody. Hey, it's good to be here.
Really good to see you. It's
Thank
been
you so
a
much
minute
for
and a
having me.
half. Yeah.
Yes, it has. It has been way too long. It's been way too long. We'll have to fix that.
Of course. Yes, we will. I believe it. Okay, so before we sort of dive in, do you want to give people a bit of an overview about who you are and the many layers behind Greg Roland,
I would
the man,
love to.
The mystery?
Yes, I would absolutely love to. Hey, everybody. My name is Greg Roland. I am born and raised in Springfield, Virginia. And I think I got lost there, but let's start again. Hey, everybody. I'm Greg Roland. I am born and raised in Springfield, Virginia. I'm a native of the DMV area. If you don't know, that is the District, Maryland, and Virginia. And one thing to know about me is I'm creative through and through. That is the one thing that I would say to describe me and who I am. That shows up in my songwriting, the way that I think, the way that I teach, the way that I relate to people. And I'm excited to be on the show today.
Mm-hmm. How did you get into creativity? Like, when was that very first point for you? And like, what made you realize that you were a creative at heart? Like, where was the beginning?
Yeah, it's funny. Right when you asked me that question, I had a memory that came to my mind that I haven't consciously thought about in several years. But I remember my mother told me when I was young, very young, 3 years old, 4 years old, that she watched me rearrange the food on my plate to tell a story. And I don't know if it was like, chicken nuggets in the shape of dinosaurs and mashed potatoes and broccoli. I don't remember what the food was, but I remember she told me that I did that. And when I think about that, that in and of itself is creativity, to be able to see something in front of you and to transform it into something else, and to be able to see meaning in something that you might not ordinarily see meaning in. I think that's what creativity is. Being able to take and to transform and to re-represent to people. And I think I've always had that ability. I credit my parents and my family and the environment that I've been in cultivating that, especially because as a musician, as a singer, who's been in choirs pretty much all of his life, I actually did not want to join my school choir when I was growing up, and my mother forced me. And I have to give her so much credit, because I wanted to do drama. I wanted to act on stage, and she said, "No, you're joining the choir, and the rest is history." So, credit to my environment and the people that are around me. I think they recognize something in me and gave me every opportunity to cultivate that, and I'm grateful for it.
That's funny because I wasn't a big fan of the choir either. So I see you, and I've been a full-time musician for my entire life. So that's
It's funny how that works out, right?
Right, right. It's crazy. I really like how you describe creativity because I think, and Ra, you'll attest to this because of the work you do as a leadership coach. I do a lot of speaking these days to corporate, companies and organizations about the importance of leaning into creativity and the importance of using like music and dance even and like humor to sort of bring people together and to sort of create a kind of team culture, etc. But I have lost track of how many people will be so quick to jump to this idea that I'm not a creative. I can't do that. I don't have a creative bone in my body. Gosh, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that from people. And you're smiling, Ra, so I know you've seen this as well. But can you kind of talk a bit about, what it means to be a creative storyteller and like how creative thinking and how creativity can manifest in people even when they don't feel like they might be creative?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like, and I've heard that statement a lot of I'm not creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I remember when I was in grad school, from about 2020, 2021, 2022. I had a professor challenge that notion because I had a lot of classmates that said that too, that I'm not creative. I'm not an artist. I can't do that. And my professor said, creativity is nothing more than just connecting things. And that stuck with me. I was like, wow, that broadens our understanding of what creativity is so that more people can access and to recognize themselves in that. They may not be a visual artist, they may not be a live performer, they may not be a musician, but everybody knows how to connect things. Everybody knows how to look at a cloud and say, oh, I kind of see a face in that cloud, or come up with an analogy to describe how they're feeling about something they've experienced. And that's connecting things. So everybody has that capability, and everybody has the ability to even strengthen that capability. So similarly to Emma and Rai, whenever I hear that now because of my professor, I try to challenge that. It's like, no, you are creative, and perhaps it just is an opportunity to develop the skill of just connecting things that you see and experience and feel.
I really love that description because as you were speaking, it was making me think of like different ways that creativity can manifest. Like, say, for example, like you look at some of the math experts, right? And it's like connecting one thing to another, which like inherently, like most people wouldn't say that that's a creative process, but it does require the ability to connect one thing with the other. And then similarly too, within a lot of leadership positions, you could say the same thing about what it means to be strategic, right? I'd love to know, like, throughout your entire career, like you've had many layers, and that's kind of what's been shared. Like, what is the thing that brings you like the most joy when it comes to your own personal creativity, and why?
That is a great question. I find a lot of fulfillment and I find a lot of joy in being able to share experiences with people and to see them experience the same joy from something that I create that I felt when I created it, right? That is something that I love, is when people can experience the same joy that I feel from something, right? That's been true, when I've been in real estate. That's been true, as a marketer. That's been true in creating experiences in consulting world. That's been true as a musician. I just, there's something about a shared experience that just really resonates with my soul. It does. And I feel like that comes from a place of an underlying belief that honestly everybody deserves to experience a life of abundance and joy, and fulfillment and contentment and meaning, right? And I almost see that my gifts are part of my responsibility to do what I can to give people opportunities to do that, to experience joy and laughter and empowerment and entertainment. I almost see that as a responsibility. But I love that. And I love seeing somebody react or that moment in the song that I put a lot of effort into, where I hit that note and they hear it and they're like, wow, that was incredible. I thought so too.
It's so fulfilling, right? You're like, oh yeah.
It is, and it's something that it can be shared and it can endure. And if it's particularly memorable, that creates a connecting moment that you can always refer back to, and it will bond you to somebody forever. And I love that.
Yeah, no, I can agree with everything you're saying on, tenfold, since, obviously as a solo artist for most of my life, they're few and far between, but when that happens, it hits. I call it punching people in the feelings.
Yeah,
which may be a little bit aggressive now that I'm thinking about it, but nonetheless,
you're gonna feel this and you're gonna like it.
Right. Let me aggressively.
I'm gonna forcibly make you like it.
Well, forcibly, like, help you to be happy and and seen and feel vulnerable and safe in vulnerability. As you were talking, however, because again, this is my knowledge of you.
Yeah.
You started in choir and you sort of moved from choir to solo artist.
Yeah.
Whereas I've done the opposite. I've gone from solo artist to now joining a choir.
Right.
Of my own free will, as opposed to being forced to it in school. Just saying. How do you navigate that same mission, vision, and value of connectedness when it comes to being in a group gospel situation, in the church, to now doing things still, gospel, but it's more Greg Roland, singer-songwriter, dope human being by himself?
Yeah, that is interesting. That is a very interesting question. I feel like I don't know if I see a difference, if I'm being honest. I think that's a cool thing, because that lets you know that you are just being your authentic self in every space. I think there's a difference in how you deliver something, right? Obviously, as speakers, as leaders, as singer-songwriters, as coaches, like, we know how to adapt messages to different audiences. And I think that you have to do that as a responsible communicator. And I think that's something that I do. I am very diligent at understanding about how to package a message, but I think the spirit of it is still the same. That at the end of the day, like, my goal is to empower you. My goal is to uplift you. My goal is to encourage you. And whatever I create, or to entertain, whatever I create, like, that is the aim of why I'm doing what I'm doing, whether that's as an individual or whether that's in a group setting, whether that's in a choir setting. And sometimes, if I'm being honest, sometimes the encouragement is for me. Sometimes the uplift is for me. Like, I need that too, right? And so, it's being able to understand, honestly, first myself, and what do I need in the moment? Do I need to pour back into myself so that I can pour out to others, or am I in a place where I have enough capacity or overflow to be able to give and be okay? So yeah.
I really love how you spoke about, like, having that self-awareness of, like, what you need within those spaces, but then how essentially it's like the same, like, no matter where you are. And I think you spoke about it earlier on, like, when you were talking about being in real estate and talking about being in corporate, and that's really a true example of authenticity, right? Like, you're not putting on a show, which is often something that, I mean, it comes
I know,
part and parcel, right, with being a musician, right? Or it's like, okay, I'm being this Greg in this situation, and this Greg in this situation. So kind of with that in mind, like, what has really supported you to be grounded in who you are and to show up as who you are across, these multiple different areas without kind of feeling that need to kind of shift or change or mold whilst still being able to meet people where they are, right? As you say, like that's like the responsibility that we have in those spaces.
I think it's come with time, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know if I've always been, certainly when you're younger, you are exploring and discovering who you are, right? And discovering what gifts you have, and how you show up in the world. And I think over time, as I've matured, as I've honestly sat with myself and sat with my own thoughts and my own experiences and my own creativity, the more time I have done that, the more confidence that it's built, and to the point where I can go in different settings, and it's there's a saying that your gift will make room for you, or your gift will follow you, right? I've been in different settings where it feels like no matter where I go, somebody always recognizes, like, oh, you've got a good speaking voice, or you're a good teacher. And so I think that it's a combination of the self work of being able to sit with who you are and your experiences, and then just being comfortable with that, but then also recognizing that wherever you go, the environments that you've been in, people will recognize your giftedness. People will recognize what you bring to the table. And if they're authentic individuals, it's coming from a good place. And that is affirming. Having those voices in your life that affirm what's special about you just reaffirms that, that belief and confidence in yourself. And I'm grateful to have had that. I'm grateful to have been in really, really, blessed and supportive communities, whether that's been my family, whether that's been, the churches that I've been to, whether that's been places that I've worked, or just the friend groups that I have. I'm fortunate to have had those voices in my life, to the point where no matter where I go, I can't escape who I am. I can't escape, being recognized for what I feel like I've been blessed and have the responsibility to carry. So it's a little bit of both, the environment, but then also the self work.
I love that. I love that. And it's funny because as you're talking about your gift will make room for you.
Yeah.
Ra and I were having this conversation just last week about, the more you lean into your gifts,
yes,
the more those gifts kind of multiply. And, then you're constantly finding yourself in spaces where new gifts that you didn't even realize you had are now making room for you. I love that. And I love that you sort of feed that back to your inner child. And, as you kind of evolve as a human being and mature, get older, or become more seasoned, as my husband says.
Seasoned. We're just sprinkling seasoning on us.
Exactly.
So
as you progress in life and collect more gifts, would you have any sort of words of wisdom for like maybe 17-year-old Greg, or even 12-year-old neighbor to Greg, to sort of help them stay aligned in their journeys?
Yes. Oh, wow. That is such a powerful question, because I resonate so strongly with loving your inner child. I love that so much. I think if I could talk to 12-year-old Greg, if I could talk to 17-year-old Greg, I would say, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is don't be afraid. That is just, simply put, that's just what first comes to my mind. Just don't be afraid. I think that's something, we talk about mental health. I think that's something that I've struggled with a lot in the past, of, fear. If that's fear of success, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of, whatever the case may be. And I think that, we've all been gifted with the gift of memory. And we can recognize those moments where we've been afraid in the past, and then, carry out that story to its conclusion, and realize moments where it's, okay, I was afraid of this, but then this is how it worked out, and it worked out well, and it worked out for my good. And so now I can kind of recalibrate and say, okay, well, I know that I was afraid in that moment, and that's normal, but I didn't have to be afraid in that moment. And so now when I feel that same emotion, when I deal with that same scenario, I have the benefit of being able to look in the past and to realize I've already made it through this, right? And so that means that I can do it again. So I would tell 17-year-old Greg, don't be afraid. Just do the thing, say the thing, release the thing, don't worry about how it's perceived. Don't worry about this, that, and the third, and just be who you are, and know that your tribe will find you. The message will get to the right individuals, and you will have the confidence, and you will have the catharsis and the satisfaction of knowing that you were able to take something from A to Z, from start to finish. Yeah.
I really love that. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people, because it is often our fear that
Oh
holds
yeah.
us back from pursuing our dreams, like be that creatively or in whatever way, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know for myself, it was like fear of judgment, fear of being perceived in a specific way, especially when it's come to sharing my gifts online as well. And I think that's something so many people can resonate with, especially when you value things like,
Yeah.
relationship and connection and family and whatnot. When it comes to like your like overcoming, your personal fears, like what
Mhm.
has really supported you in that process? Like knowing that, often fear is going to be there, right?
Yeah.
But like what has been like the thing that you've had to remind yourself of, or like do you have like a personal process
Yeah.
whereby you're like, okay, all right, I'm going to do it anyway because I know that this is my gift?
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's so many things that I feel like I've acquired in my toolkit over the years. One of the things that I feel like I go to often, I go to the most frequently, I go to first, honestly, it's just my faith. It's just prayer. And I feel like, well, not I feel like, I know, that has met me where I am so many times, and given me the courage to be able to just do the thing that I've been afraid of, even while still being afraid of it, right?
Mm,
And then once you take that step, the hard part is over, because you've done all that you can do, and then the rest of it, the consequences or the natural after effects of that are no longer in your hands,
mhm,
right? And so whether that's how things play out with a job, or a relationship, or an opportunity, or a song being received, that's no longer in your hands. You've released it, you've taken the step, you've been courageous, and the rest you've got to trust to time. The rest you've got to trust to God. The rest you've got to trust to the process. And I think that is freeing, and that has freed me. It's something I've grown over the years, that when I do my part, right, it's my faith that tells me that God will handle the rest. That
mm,
if I just be patient, this will work out the way that it's supposed to. If I just wait a little while, the door will open, or it won't, and then I'll redirect and go somewhere else, right? But being afraid is something that I've learned to embrace. Not that I ever want to. Whoever wants to be afraid, or to, it's natural, but it doesn't mean that it's always, enjoyable. But
mm,
having something to ground you, um, I cannot say enough about how my faith has done that for me.
mhm,
And with that, that comes with a community, that comes with, as I said before, the gift of memory, right? The more you actually take the courageous step, the more evidence you have of how you've already done that in the past. And that lets you know, okay, next time I feel these emotions, next time I'm in the situation, I have a moment from 2022 where I did this. I did this back in 2017. I did this a week ago, where I took a courageous step, and the thing that I was afraid of, it didn't even happen. Or even if it did, I was okay, right? And that just gives you ammo and gives you encouragement to keep taking those steps, to keep being courageous, to keep knowing that whatever you do, God's got your back, your family's got your back, your friends
mm,
got your back, and you'll be okay. So yeah,
mm,
that's what I would say.
mm.
I adore the fact that you keep coming back to this whole thing of the gift of memory.
Yeah.
And when I say adore, I mean in a duality sense,
Yes.
because I feel, at least with the clients that I work with, and even with my own music, as I write retrospectively about things that you come through in those moments of fear, when you're like, okay, I'm a try to embrace my inner warrior woman, or embrace my faith, and go through it, not anyway. um, those memories can also be really triggering for
Yes.
so many people. And one of the things that you and I have talked about is, as an empowerment through songwriting coach, my whole thing is about how can we turn that pain into power? How can we turn those struggles into songs? How can we, take the mess and turn it into a blessing for ourselves and for those around us?
Yeah.
When you talk about memory, however, like, what is your process for that? For how to like take those triggers, take those dark moments, take those moments of doubt, take those moments of, oh my gosh, I was so scared, so nervous, so whatever, or hurt, and turn that into something so beautiful.
I love everything you just said. I that resonates so strongly with me, and that is something I've done repeatedly and continue to do. Is it almost gives me the courage to embrace difficult moments and difficult memories and even triggering and traumatic experiences and memories, because I know that it's a part of the process, right? And I think what is difficult oftentimes in moments where we do remember things that are triggering or traumatizing is that we can feel stuck in that memory. We can feel stuck in that place, right? In that moment, in that period of time. And I think that having a toolkit, let's just use music, for example, of turning, a triggering moment into a piece of poetry or a song, right? What that does is that it takes you out of being stuck in that memory. It it gives you the courage to embrace that difficult, that challenging emotion, because I'm not stopping there. That's just part of the process in me processing it. And then I can take those emotions that I feel and know that I can turn them into song lyrics, for example, because they're honest, right? And me coming up with honest song lyrics that I then give to other people, like that will create access points for them to resonate with what I'm saying. But it's empowering because that you're not staying stuck in that moment. You are continuing that process on so that it transforms into something productive or powerful or healing. And like I've done that many times. And I think what comes to mind is, during the pandemic, obviously we all experienced what that was like, and, being quarantined and being very, very isolated, and just how that affected all of our mental health. Now that's a triggering moment. That's a traumatizing moment for so many. And there were moments where, I opened up my phone. I had an app on my phone called Voicey, where you could loop a melody. And I opened that app and I honestly just started talking. I just started singing, right? And that was me embracing what I was feeling in that moment and transforming it into something that I could then go back and listen to and understand, what story am I telling myself, right? And then how can I change this and transform this in a way that it can give me the strength and the encouragement that I need, or at least the release that I need. Even if I'm not yet to the point where I feel like I can heal from this, at least I'm just getting the emotions out, right? And then understanding that things take time. It takes time to process. It takes time to heal. But over time, being faithful to that process and to do that work, you can do that transformative work of transforming pain into power, transforming, difficulty into something that's, full of encouragement. So, and you don't have to be a musician to do that. It doesn't just look like opening up a music app and singing. That could be writing, that could be journaling, that could be talking to a therapist, that could be talking to a trusted family member, that could be, or drawing something. It could be whatever it is for you. But knowing and being empowered to know that I can embrace this moment. I can embrace this thought, this feeling, because I know I'm not going to stay stuck here. It's just a step in the process of me getting to that place of healing and empowerment. That's been really empowering for me.
I really love how you spoke about like embracing the moment and embracing those feelings versus like typically, what I often see in a lot of the clients that I work with, it's like the avoidance of the emotion.
Or wallowing.
Wallowing. Yeah. And it's like, and then that's actually what's keeping them stuck versus, okay, actually, can I just be in this, let myself feel this? and then process it in a way that feels like most natural and normal to me, right? Like you said, for you, it was like voice noting. And then, you know, for me, like when you said poetry, I was like, well, that's how I wrote my first poetry book. You are not alone. I went through that process that you were speaking about. But also too, like as a CrossFit coach, I also see that as like people use sport to often process their emotions as well. And so there's so many different ways that, as you say, you can kind of turn that pain into something more purposeful and powerful. But really what I loved, like out of everything that you said, was just like embracing it. Because like when you embrace it, like that's when you truly transform it and actually give yourself that space to heal. Gosh, I really love this conversation, and I know we're coming up to the end. And before I hand it over to Emma, I'm just going to say that your earrings keep banging on the mic.
Oh, no.
Just so you know. I know.
Listen,
so before I hand it back to you.
You know what it is? It's because I'm delivering a stress management workshop this week, and I wanted to look pretty for the journalists that I'm working with. I'm sorry, and I wanted to look pretty for you too, man. Like,
you
seriously.
Look beautiful. I love them.
Apologies. Okay, let me just hold these back.
Yeah. Well, while Emma's situating her earrings, I just responding to what you were just saying. What I think is really a powerful tool, and I think is hopefully encouraging to individuals that may struggle with, embracing or accepting those difficult emotions. And one thing that I learned in my own, journey, my own healing journey, is if there's something that I feel like, is a weakness for me, or something that I'm hesitant to embrace, right? Taking something that represents psychological safety, or something that's a strength of mine, and combining it with a thing that is maybe a weakness, and using my strength to raise up the level of, of what's weak, or using something that feels safe to me to help me embrace something that may not feel as safe. And I think that's a really, really powerful tool, to have in your tool belt, your mental health tool belt, to heal and to process. And I think the benefit of processing is that it allows you to develop new convictions that you can re-enter old contexts. And so, in the moment that you experience something, you have all the feelings that you have from it, you have all the reactions, and they can be dramatic or otherwise. But as you process, something changes, something shifts, something transforms. And you would be surprised that when you combine the strength with the weakness, or combine something that feels safe with something that doesn't, that changes how you think about something, to the point where now you can re-enter that old place where that was uncomfortable with a new set of convictions, and realize, okay, wow, this place may not have changed, but I did. Right. And that's a really empowering thing to be and to feel.
Yeah, I'm smiling so much because I just loved everything that you said, especially the psychological safety part, and using your strengths, and, because that's a really big part of the work that I do. And so just loved everything that you shared, and thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a joy.
My pleasure.
Such a joy, such a joy, and so good to see you again.
I'm very grateful. Always, yes. I can't wait to see you in person again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In the meantime, I am streaming you on Spotify, and everybody who's watching this podcast,
please do.
Same
yes.
thing. If you want to sort of know more about Greg and how he has literally turned his pain into power, and is using his voice literally and metaphorically to empower himself and audiences worldwide, check him out on Spotify. Otherwise, what's the best way people can get in touch with you, Greg?
Absolutely. My Instagram, Greg Roland Music, my YouTube channel. I've got some exciting things coming on the YouTube front, so please stay tuned for that. And as you mentioned, everywhere streaming is available. I've got music there and music on the way, so stay tuned. But I would love to stay connected with you and join me in the journey.
Absolutely. And until next week, friends, apologies again for my earrings, but this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm excited to hear more from Greg in the months coming, but more on that later. Until then, be good, be kind, spread love like it's going out of fashion. Don't forget to look after yourself, rest, hydrate, stay out of this heat. It's very hot.
Very hot.
And I don't know, I'll see you next week. Peace, guys.
Bye, everyone.